The dust in Silver Creek, Colorado, swirled around Olivia Westbrook's worn boots as she hurried down the main street, clutching her market basket close to her chest. It was 1876, and the mining town was bustling with activity, none of which was particularly welcoming to a 20-year-old woman trying to make her way alone in the world. "Look who it is," called Harriet Thornton, the banker's wife, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "The girl from that falling-down cabin by Willow Creek. I swear, those patches on her dress have patches." Olivia kept her eyes forward, her cheeks burning. She had mended her blue calico dress so many times the original fabric was barely visible in some places, but it was clean and decent. "That should have been enough for proper folks. Don't waste your breath, Harriet," Eleanor Price chimed in. "Some people are just born to poverty. It's practically written in their blood." The women's laughter followed Olivia as she quickened her pace toward Fuller's General Store. Inside, she placed 3 eggs, 2 potatoes, and a handful of wild berries on the counter goods she'd gathered herself to trade. "Not much today, Miss Westbrook," Mr. Fuller said with a frown. "I can give you a 1/4 pound of flour and maybe a small bit of coffee." "That would be fine, thank you," Olivia said softly. As Mr. Fuller measured out her meager goods, the bell above the door jangled. Heavy footsteps crossed the wooden floor and the atmosphere in the store seemed to shift. "Afternoon, Mr. Fuller," came a deep voice that Olivia didn't recognize. "Garrett Callahan. Didn't expect to see you back so soon." "How was the cattle drive to Denver?" "Profitable enough," the man answered. "Need to stock up before heading back to the ranch." Olivia kept her eyes down, not wanting to draw attention to herself in her shabby clothes. But as she reached for her small package of goods, her elbow knocked over a display of tin cups. The clatter was deafening in the small store. Olivia dropped to her knees instantly, frantically gathering the scattered items. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Fuller, I'll fix it right away," she said, her voice barely audible. "Clumsy as well as poor," came another voice from the doorway. Agnes Miller had entered just in time to witness Olivia's mishap. Some people simply shouldn't be allowed in decent establishments. Olivia's hands trembled as she continued picking up the cups, trying to blink away the tears forming in her eyes. Suddenly, a pair of worn leather boots appeared beside her, and strong, calloused hands joined hers in gathering the items. "Accidents happen to everyone, madam," the deep voice said. "Even to folks who should know better than to speak unkindly of others." Olivia glanced up into the most startling blue eyes she'd ever seen. The man, Garrett Callahan, she presumed wore a worn leather vest over a simple cotton shirt. His face was tanned from the sun, with laugh lines around his eyes despite his serious expression. He couldn't have been more than 28 or so. "Thank you," Olivia whispered as they stood, the display restored. "No need for thanks," he replied, then turned to Agnes Miller with a steady gaze. "In my experience, Mrs. Miller, a person's worth isn't measured by what's in their purse, but by what's in their heart." Agnes huffed and busied herself at a nearby shelf, clearly put in her place. Olivia gathered her small package and hurried toward the door, mortified by the entire exchange. As she reached for the handle, Garrett's voice stopped her. "Miss, you forgot something." He held out a small paper bag. "I didn't purchase anything else," she said, confused. "Consider it a welcome to a new neighbor. I just bought the old Hanson property that borders Willow Creek." Olivia's cabin sat on a small plot of land alongside Willow Creek. "That makes us neighbors then," she said softly. "It does indeed. Garrett Callahan," he said, extending his hand. "Olivia Westbrook." She placed her small hand in his large one, feeling the strength there. "Miss Westbrook, would you allow me to escort you home? I'd like to introduce myself properly, as neighbors should." Olivia hesitated. She wasn't accustomed to kindness from strangers, especially not handsome cowboys with kind eyes. But something in his straightforward manner made her nod in agreement. Outside the store, Garrett untied his chestnut gelding from the hitching post. "This is Rusty," he said, patting the horse's neck. "He's gentle enough for 2." Before Olivia could protest, Garrett had lifted her onto the saddle and swung up behind her. The town's gossips would have a field day with this, but for once, Olivia found she didn't care. As they rode out of town, Garrett kept a respectful distance despite their shared saddle. "I heard what those women said to you," he commented after they'd traveled in silence for a while. "It's nothing I haven't heard before," Olivia replied, trying to sound unbothered. "Doesn't make it right. Folks around here seem to judge by appearances more than character. And you don't." Garrett chuckled, the sound warm against her ear. "Miss Westbrook, I've learned that the finest people I know often have the emptiest pockets. My pa used to say a full heart makes up for an empty purse any day." As they approached the small cabin by Willow Creek, Olivia felt a rush of shame. The cabin was sturdy enough, but it was humble to the extreme, a one-room structure with a small vegetable garden that was her pride and joy. "It's not much," she said as they dismounted. "Looks like a home to me," Garrett replied, his eyes taking in the neatly swept yard and the flowers she'd planted along the path. "And that garden's thriving. You've got a way with growing things." Olivia blushed at the compliment. "My mother taught me." She believed in making beauty wherever you could find space for it. "Wise woman," Garrett said. "Are your parents nearby?" Olivia's smile faltered. "They passed 3 winters ago. Fever took them both within days of each other." "I'm sorry for your loss," Garrett said, genuine compassion in his voice. "It's not easy being alone in this world." "No, it isn't," Olivia agreed. She gestured to the cabin. "Would you like some tea? It's the least I can offer for your kindness today." "I'd be honored," Garrett replied, following her inside. The cabin's interior was spotlessly clean, with simple furnishings. A patchwork quilt of vibrant colors brightened the small bed in the corner. Books, clearly treasured possessions, were stacked neatly on a small table. Olivia busied herself at the small cast iron stove, painfully aware of how little she had to offer a guest. She opened the paper bag Garrett had given her, finding sugar cookies inside, a luxury she rarely afforded herself. "These will go perfectly with the tea," she said gratefully. As they sat at her small table, Olivia found herself sharing stories of her parents, her father's work as a carpenter, her mother's talents as a seamstress. Garrett listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that drew her out of her usual reserve. "And you've been alone here since they passed?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Yes, Father left the cabin and land to me free and clear. I take in mending and washing from some of the miners, and I sell vegetables from my garden when they're in season. It's enough to get by." "That takes courage, Miss Westbrook, more than most have." Olivia looked down at her chipped teacup. "Not courage, necessity." "Sometimes they're the same thing." Garrett rose to leave. "Thank you for the tea and conversation. I hope you'll allow me to call on you again." "I'd like that," Olivia replied, surprised by her own boldness. At the door, Garrett turned back. "Those town women, they see your worn clothes in this simple cabin and think you're poor." He shook his head. "But I look at your books, your garden, the home you've made, and I see something different. You're rich in ways they'll never understand." With those words, he tipped his hat and departed, leaving Olivia staring after him with a curious warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the tea. The following week brought Garrett to Olivia's door 3 times. First with a basket of apples from his orchard, then to ask her advice on vegetable planting, and finally with an invitation to Sunday dinner at his ranch house. "It's nothing fancy," he assured her. "But Mrs. Hobson, my housekeeper, makes a fine roast, and I thought you might enjoy the company." Olivia hesitated, glancing down at her best dress, the blue calico with fewer patches than the others. "I'm not sure I'd be welcome at a rancher's table." Garrett's expression grew serious. "It's my table, Olivia, and I say who's welcome there, and I'd be honored if you join me." The sincerity in his eyes overcame her reluctance, and she found herself agreeing. Sunday arrived with clear skies and Olivia's stomach in knots. She had washed her hair with rosemary water and pinned it carefully, and scrubbed her hands until they were red, trying to remove the persistent garden soil from under her nails. When Garrett arrived with a wagon instead of his horse, Olivia was surprised to see a proper buggy with a fringed top. "This is rather grand," she commented as he helped her up. "Can't have you arriving dusty and windblown," he replied with a grin, "though you'd look lovely either way." The compliment brought color to Olivia's cheeks. During their ride, Garrett pointed out the boundaries of his property, explaining his plans for expanding the cattle operation he'd inherited from his uncle. "I worked as a hired hand on ranches since I was 16, he explained. "Saved every penny. When my uncle passed last year and left me his place, I finally had my chance to build something of my own." "That's admirable," Olivia said. "Building something from nothing takes determination." Garrett gave her a sideways glance. "Seems to me you know something about that yourself." The ranch house came into view, a sturdy two-story structure with a wide porch and smoke curling from the chimney. It was far grander than Olivia had expected, and her nervousness returned tenfold. "Garrett, I don't belong here," she whispered as he helped her down from the buggy. His hands lingered on her waist a moment longer than necessary. "You belong wherever you choose to be, Olivia Westbrook, and I'm choosing to have you here." Mrs. Hobson proved to be a motherly woman with a ready smile who welcomed Olivia warmly. The meal was indeed excellent: roast beef, potatoes with gravy, fresh bread, and apple pie for dessert. Olivia couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten so well. After the meal, Garrett showed her around the ranch. The barn was clean and well organized, housing several fine horses. The cattle in the nearby pasture were healthy and numerous. "You've done well for yourself," Olivia observed. "I've been fortunate," he agreed. "But a ranch isn't just buildings and livestock, it's a home, and that's something I'm still working on." There was a wistfulness in his tone that made Olivia look at him more closely. "You said you've been on your own since 16, Garrett nodded, leaning against the fence. "Ma died when I was 12. Pa tried his best, but the drink took him 4 years later. I've been making my own way since." "Then we have something in common," Olivia said softly. "We both know what it means to stand alone." Garrett's gaze was steady. "Maybe that's why I noticed you that day in the store. I recognized something familiar in your eyes." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Garrett walked Olivia to a small hill overlooking the property. "This is my favorite spot," he confessed. "When things get overwhelming, I come here to remind myself what I'm working for." "And what is that?" Olivia asked. "A legacy, something that will outlast me." His eyes found hers. "But lately I've been thinking a legacy isn't worth much without someone to share it with." The words hung between them, full of meaning. Olivia's heart hammered in her chest. "Garrett, I'm not asking for anything, Olivia," he interrupted gently. "Just telling you what's in my mind. You deserve to know that you've become important to me very quickly." "You hardly know me," she whispered. "I know enough," he replied. "I know you're strong, resilient, and kind, despite having every reason not to be. I know you find beauty in simple things and value what truly matters. The rest, well, that's what time is for." As Garrett drove her home in the gathering twilight, Olivia felt as though her life had shifted on its axis. For the first time since her parents died, she was seeing possibilities beyond mere survival. The town gossips noticed the developing friendship between the successful rancher and the poor seamstress. Olivia heard the whispers when she went to town, accusations that she was setting her cap for Garrett's money, predictions that he was merely toying with her. "Don't pay them any mind," Martha Baker, the kindly wife of the blacksmith, advised her one day. "Garrett Callahan isn't a man to be swayed by idle talk, and neither should you be." Still, the words stung, especially when Agnes Miller cornered her outside the church one Sunday. "You may have fooled Garrett Callahan with your innocent act, but everyone knows what you're really after," the woman hissed. A girl from nowhere with nothing to her name suddenly catching the eye of the most eligible bachelor in the county. It's transparent and pathetic. Olivia had walked away, head high but heart aching. That afternoon, when Garrett came calling, she made excuses not to see him. The next day and the next, she did the same. On the third day, instead of accepting her flimsy excuse, Garrett asked plainly, "Have I offended you somehow, Olivia?" Standing in her doorway, unable to meet his eyes, Olivia finally confessed, "People are talking, Garrett. They say I'm after your money, that I'm trying to improve my station by attaching myself to you. And you care what they say?" His voice was gentle but probing. "I care that they might be right," Olivia admitted, finally looking up at him. "What could I possibly offer a man like you? I have nothing." Garrett's expression darkened. "Nothing? You think that because you don't have fine clothes or a big house that you have nothing to offer? Be realistic, Garrett. Look at me at this cabin. I'm one bad winter away from destitution. And I'm one cattle disease away from the same," he countered. "Fortune is fickle out here, Olivia. What matters is who stands beside you when it changes." He took her hands in his. "When I look at you, I don't see a poor woman. I see someone rich in courage, in dignity, in kindness. You're rich in my eyes, Olivia, richer than any of those fine ladies in town could ever hope to be." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "You can't mean that." "I've never meant anything more," he said firmly. "Now will you stop avoiding me and let me court you properly, because I intend to convince you of my sincerity however long it takes." Olivia couldn't help but smile through her tears. "You're a stubborn man, Garrett Callahan." "Only about things that matter," he replied, raising her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss. "And you, Olivia Westbrook, matter more than most." Summer faded into autumn, and Garrett's courtship continued with unwavering dedication. He brought her books from his own library, knowing her love of reading. He helped repair the roof of her cabin before the winter rains, and together they harvested the last of her garden vegetables. In return, Olivia shared her knowledge of preserving foods, taught him her mother's recipes, and mended his shirts with such fine stitching that Mrs. Hobson declared herself impressed. Their relationship deepened with each passing week, built on shared conversations, mutual respect, and a growing affection that neither could deny. Garrett introduced Olivia to his ranch hands as the finest gardener in the county, his pride in her evident to all. When the first snow fell in November, Garrett arrived at Olivia's cabin with a sleigh full of firewood and winter provisions. "You didn't have to do this," she protested as he stacked the wood beside her cabin. "I know," he replied simply. "I wanted to." That evening, as they sat before the fire drinking hot cider, Garrett seemed unusually quiet. "Is something troubling you?" Olivia asked. He set down his mug and turned to face her. "Not troubled, just thinking." "About what?" "About how quickly things can change." He took her hand. "This time last year I was alone on a ranch that felt too big for one man. Now I sit here with you and suddenly everything makes sense." Olivia's breath caught. "Garrett, let me finish," he said gently. "I've never been good with pretty words, Olivia. I'm a plain-speaking man. But what I feel for you isn't plain at all, it's extraordinary." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet pouch. "This was my mother's. My father gave it to her when they had nothing but each other and dreams of a better life." From the pouch, he pulled a simple gold band with a small pearl set in the center. "They built that life together through hardship and joy. I'd like to build one with you if you'll have me." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "The town will talk," she whispered. "Let them," Garrett replied. "We'll be too busy being happy to listen." "I have no dowry, no family connections. You have yourself," he interrupted. "That's the only gift I want." His blue eyes searched hers. "Olivia Westbrook, will you marry me?" "Yes," she breathed, the word barely audible. Then louder, with conviction, "Yes, Garrett, I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close for a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. They married on Christmas Day in the small church in Silver Creek. Martha Baker helped Olivia transform one of her mother's old dresses into a wedding gown, adding lace from her own trousseau and tiny pearls that had once adorned her daughter's baptismal dress. The town's reaction was mixed. Some, like the Bakers, embraced the union with genuine goodwill. Others, including Agnes Miller and Harriet Thornton, attended only to confirm their predictions of Garrett Callahan's unfortunate mistake. But when Olivia walked down the aisle to where Garrett waited, his face alight with love and pride, the opinions of others ceased to matter. "You are the most beautiful bride I've ever seen," he whispered as she reached his side. "And you are the most handsome groom," she replied, her heart full. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Garrett kissed her with such tenderness that even some of the skeptics were moved. At the small reception in the church hall, Harriet Thornton approached the couple, her expression pinched. "Well, Mr. Callahan, I must say you've surprised us all with your choice. I do hope you won't regret being so charitable." Before Garrett could respond, Olivia spoke up, her voice clear and steady. "My husband isn't charitable, Mrs. Thornton, he's wise. He knows that true wealth isn't counted in dollars but in love, loyalty, and character." She smiled up at Garrett. "And by those measures, I intend to make him the richest man in Colorado." Garrett's laughter rang out as he pulled his bride close. "I already am, my love, I already am." That night, as snow fell softly outside the ranch house that was now their shared home, Garrett and Olivia began their life together. Their love, born of mutual respect and genuine affection, deepened with each passing day. Spring brought new calves to the ranch and new plantings to the expanded garden where Olivia worked alongside the ranch hands, teaching them her methods. Summer saw the addition of a new wing to the house, designed with Olivia's input to include a proper library for her growing collection of books. In autumn, when the aspens turned golden on the hillsides, Olivia shared news that brought tears of joy to Garrett's eyes. "A baby," he whispered, his hand gentle on her still flat stomach. "Our own family." "Are you happy?" she asked, still sometimes uncertain of her place in his world. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible," he assured her, dropping to his knees to press a kiss to her midriff. "You've given me everything, Olivia, everything that matters." When Agnes Miller and her circle saw Olivia in town, her condition evident beneath her new dress, made from fabric Garrett had ordered specially from Denver, their whispers took on a new tone. "Well, she's certainly secured her position now," Agnes remarked loudly. Olivia, overhearing as she selected fabric for baby clothes, turned to face the woman directly. "Mrs. Miller, I used to wonder why you despised me so, but I've realized it's not really about me at all, it's about what I represent." Agnes bristled. "And what might that be?" "The possibility that worth isn't determined by wealth or status, that love can cross the boundaries you hold so dear." Olivia smiled serenely. "It frightens you because it challenges everything you believe." Without waiting for a response, Olivia completed her purchases and left the store, head high. That evening, as she recounted the exchange to Garrett, he laughed heartily. "My brave wife, standing up to the dragons of Silver Creek. I'm not sure what came over me," Olivia admitted. "But I'm tired of shrinking from their judgment." "Good," Garrett said approvingly. "Because you have nothing to be ashamed of, you never did." In late winter, as snow blanketed the ranch in pristine white, Olivia gave birth to a daughter they named Grace Elizabeth Callahan. She had her father's blue eyes and her mother's determined spirit. The day after the birth, as Olivia rested in their bed with the baby at her breast, Garrett sat beside them, his expression one of wonder. "When I saw you that day in the store, being ridiculed for your poverty, something in me knew you were special," he said softly. "But I never imagined how completely you would transform my life." Olivia smiled down at their daughter. "We've transformed each other. You saw value in me when I'd forgotten it was there." "It was always there," Garrett insisted. "I just had the good sense to recognize it." He stroked the baby's tiny head. "And now we have this miracle to show for it." As spring returned to the Colorado mountains, bringing wildflowers to the meadows and new leaves to the aspens, the Callahan Ranch flourished. Garrett's cattle operation expanded, guided by his shrewd business sense and hard work. The vegetable garden, under Olivia's care, produced enough to sell the excess at the Silver Creek market. Their home became known for its hospitality. Ranch hands, travelers, and eventually even some of the townspeople who had once scorned Olivia found welcome at the Callahan table. 3 years after Grace's birth, Olivia gave birth to twins, a boy they named James after Garrett's father, and another girl they called Rose for the wild roses that grew by Willow Creek near Olivia's old cabin, which they maintained as a reminder of their beginnings. The night after the twins were born, as the house finally grew quiet with all 3 children asleep, Garrett found Olivia sitting on the porch, gazing at the stars. "You should be resting," he admonished gently, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "I wanted to see the sky," she replied. "To remind myself how far we've come." Garrett sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "Are you happy, Mrs. Callahan?" Olivia turned to him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "Happier than I ever imagined possible. You gave me more than a home, Garrett. You gave me a life filled with purpose and love." "No, my love," he corrected gently. "We built that life together, just as we'll continue to do." He kissed her softly. "Remember what I told you that first day, you're rich in ways that matter." "And you were right," she agreed. "Though I didn't believe it then. Do you believe it now?" Olivia looked back at the house where their children slept, then to the ranch that had flourished under their joint care, and finally to the man beside her whose love had never wavered. "Yes," she said with absolute certainty. "I am the richest woman in all of Colorado, and no one can ever take that from me." As they sat together beneath the vast Colorado sky, Garrett and Olivia Callahan held tight to the wealth they had created together, a wealth measured not in dollars or possessions, but in love, family, and the home they had built from the foundations of their hearts. It was a fortune that would endure long after the gold in the Colorado mountains had turned to dust, passed down through generations as the most valuable inheritance of all. The knowledge that true worth comes not from what you have, but from who you love and how you love them.